This is Lori McIntosh, and I'm with Rustic Ranches Real Estate Broker by eXp Realty. And I live in Auburn, work in Auburn, and actually all over Placer County. But Auburn is my main town. And today I get to interview Sean Rabe, who is the city manager of Auburn. And we are in the historic City Hall, right off of 80 and High Street, right?
Yep.
In Lincoln. It gets a little confusing with the way the town runs like this, and I talk about it constantly. But just wanted to share with you all that Sean has a lot to say about this town. And as a newcomer, I think he's already learned quite a bit.
Yeah.
And he's also a fellow Rotarian. He's in my club, which is the big one, the Auburn Club of Rotary.
Yep.
Or is it Rotary Club of Auburn?
Rotary.
Yes. So thanks for meeting me today.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. No problem. Yeah, so, when I first came up here, I grew up in Auburn County, like an old gold rush community too. And so like the streets it's very similar, right? Little like narrow streets that were built for horses and wagons and trying to figure out how to fit cars and sidewalks, and interesting. It's been really interesting.
Yeah, especially like behind City Hall, that street where the backside of Carpe Vino is. It's a one way, and that gets a little tricky.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, some things you notice. So let's start with how you got into this business.
Yeah, so I grew up in Auburn County. I lived there from when I was 5 years old to like 35-ish, somewhere around there. I worked at my uncle's gas station for 14 years, pumping gas, driving a tow truck, met a bunch of people through that. And then I started working at the local newspaper. So I went to school. I had 2 AA degrees, one in science and one in like English. And I thought it was didn't make much sense to be driving a tow truck with 2 AA degrees. So I got hired at the local newspaper like as a cub reporter, no experience at all. And then worked my up within 2 years, became the assistant editor, and then the next year the editor, and I was the editor there for just about 5 years altogether. So went to school, finished going to school, got my bachelor's degree in government, and then through working at the newspaper, I met a bunch of city managers and covered like literally every city council meeting or school board of supervisors, all that stuff. And then got really interested in the government side and made the switch and started working as a transportation planner for the county transportation agency, which is honestly, no offense to transportation planners, but like the most boring job you could possibly have, because you're planning stuff that's just like probably never going to actually happen. And
this is Amador County still?
Amador County.
Okay, which college?
I went to Sac State, graduated in Sac State. So stayed there for a couple of years, and then went to work for the city of Cedar Creek as the assistant city manager, and stayed there for about 8 altogether. In the meantime, got my master's degree in public policy through CSU Northridge. And then, so I moved to West Sacramento and commuted back, got married in between there.
Did you meet your wife in college?
I met her at the newspaper.
Okay, she worked there too?
Yeah, she did. Yeah, I wasn't the editor when she got hired, but I ended up being the editor for a little bit with her, and then I moved on. So
nice.
Yeah, so started working in Cedar Creek and was commuting back. So I bought a house, started grad school, and got appointed city manager basically all in the same month, which was tough.
That's a little stressful, like in a positive way.
It was good. It was good.
So you've been in Northern California your whole life, pretty much.
Yeah.
Did you ever want to work in LA?
No.
Southern California?
I'm a small city guy, small town guy.
Mm-hmm.
Amador County only has like 35,000 people in the whole county. The city, Cedar Creek, only had like 3,500. Jackson has like 7,000 or something like that. So I've always been in small cities. I went from Cedar Creek to Colma in San Mateo County, which only had 1,500 people, but there's 1.7 million people buried there, 17 cemeteries.
Wow.
It's really interesting city.
A lot of ghosts.
Yeah. I had to walk through 2 cemeteries to get to City Hall from BART at nighttime, or in the morning when it's dark and misty, and it was kind of weird. But yeah,
wow.
Stayed there for 3 years. The commute was killing me. We had a little girl, and then left there and came up to Loomis, and was in Loomis before here for about 6.5 years altogether.
Okay. Well, I have to backtrack for a minute. So you mentioned Jackson. I like to say I had my first child in Jackson, but I bought a horse with my
Oh yeah.
husband, and he was our first baby. And
Yeah.
his name was Fenn Guinness.
Wow.
And I would drive over there and go ride with the owner of him. And she had 5 gray Arabian horses and did endurance.
Oh wow.
Lived on 80 acres with her husband, who was a firefighter captain in Sacramento. So he's gone a lot. And
Yeah.
she's like by herself. And that was
Wow.
pretty wild. It was like the old west there, and we're
Yeah.
talking 2005, 6.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
So I
it's
was city
pretty cool
manager
up
during that
there.
time in Sutter Creek. Yeah. Yeah. It's
Hmm.
the community is it's changed and there's been growth, but not a ton, right? And so it Auburn coming up here to Auburn to me is kind of like being back home because the community is so similar. It's
Hmm.
bigger, but the Gold Rush ties and the historical ties and the way that people treat each other and talk to each other here is really similar to where I grew up. So it's a really good fit for me here, I think.
Yeah, and so in Auburn, the history, we have, I think, 8 museums that are all free to visit,
Yeah.
and with a major focus, obviously, on gold mining, and you can even pan for fun.
Right.
And you can go to Bass Pro Shop in Rockland and buy a pan and a little
But, yeah.
screen and go to it in the river if you
Right.
want. We were just looking at that the other day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so you went from Amador County, working in Sutter, straight to Loomis, and you're married. You had a young child, and then city manager in Loomis. So how long were you there
So I was
in
in
that area?
Loomis for 6.5 years altogether. When I started, so there was a lot of change when I was there when I started. Like a lot of stuff happening. We had a big development project that was going on, and that was overturned by voters. But we did a lot of like streetscape improvement and just trying to like kind of pretty the town up. And so when you go through now, it's the most gratifying thing I think about being a city manager is like you start a project and it's not like a planning thing where it takes forever. You can see things happening. And so, we did that big streetscape project, cleaned some of the businesses up. We did some facade improvement stuff. And then within 2 years, you see that, and then you see how the vibrancy starts coming back into town. So I think that's like one of the most rewarding things about this job, frankly, is being able to see the impact that you have on the community where you're working, and like quickly. So it's not so like kind of delayed gratification, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that the plan for Auburn?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I'm so it's kind of side conversation, but
Yeah.
one of the people that we hired as a consultant in Loomis, where I just had signed a contract for her to come up here. She's the one who kind of led that visioning process about what Loomis ended up with the downtown. She's someone who did that there, and so she's going to come up here and kind of lead that process too, in
Nice.
Old Town and downtown, both of the
Okay.
districts. So
So working on merging them together.
I don't think we'll ever get there,
Yeah. Mainly because of
but
the dead zones, you think, and just
there's yeah
and the
there's a
traffic
gap in
patterns.
between, and then Old Town has a distinct historic vibe, and downtown has a differently distinct vibe, not so kind of historic but a little bit. And so I don't think that there's any way to really like to create like a huge amount of synergy between the two, other than doing the same kind of like beautification projects in both, right? So at least they tie together, but they are distinct kind of areas that we want to preserve both of those. We don't want to turn anything into Disneyland. We don't want Old Town to look like Main Street, all that stuff. It's got a distinct thing, and we need to protect that. I think that's one of the things that I really like about these, like this Gold Rush area, is kind of the historical nature and protecting that historical fabric. You can also do cool things with that, and have everybody be successful at the same time. I was
Yeah.
almost a history major in college, and
Ah.
realized that I don't have patience to be a teacher with kids. But the historical side and the interest in history is still there for me. So protecting that is really important, I think.
I'm 100% with you. I do have a history degree. I went
Yeah.
to University of Texas, and I thought I was going to teach history, and I'm petrified of teenagers.
Yeah.
So I was
Right, yeah.
like, no, I can't do it.
Yeah.
And so that
Yeah.
was I wouldn't say a useless degree, but it didn't help me when I became an occupational therapist. So I had to go back,
Right.
almost start all over because it was science. And
Yeah. So
Yeah, so that was fun. But yeah, we might as well just keep going on with Auburn because
yeah,
I was kind of talking too much about the past, and this is about Auburn
yeah,
and the history of it, preserving it. And it is, I feel like you're in a tricky situation a little bit because people want that history, but they
mhm,
also want growth. And with the topography here and the way the canyon is and the land, you can get a lot of growth. I mean, you can always go up,
right,
right? And I know we talked about that before, but you don't want to destroy like an old building like this. And like right out your window, you see
yeah,
where Josephine's is, and that's a historic building.
right,
What is that? Oddfellows.
yeah,
They have that whole second and third floor,
right,
and that's a cool place that definitely needs some help, but you don't want to destroy it.
yeah, right,
And
exactly.
then we have another issue with, do we want to bring a big box type of store here because of the massive income it could bring? Or do we want all the little shops that are open for short hours, but then the shop owners also can't afford to hire someone, and they're mostly young women, it seems
Yeah,
like, with kids,
yeah,
and they can't work all day.
yeah,
So they can't keep the shops open all day and at night for the restaurants. And
yeah.
I guess I've been here 7 years and I've seen some buildings that are still closed. And I'm like, why don't you just tax those guys really heavily? Since they're just leaving them empty and they're not being filled, you
Right.
know? It's
Yeah.
like, what's a way to get them to put someone in
So
there?
that's actually something that we've talked about. The only issue with that is that it needs to be approved by voters because it's a property tax, right? And so my perspective on that is there's ways to like help move people along and get buildings filled up by, like, you don't want to be the building that kind of sticks out like a sore thumb, right? And so if we're able to create this vibrancy in the different downtown areas, old town and downtown, and like there's one building that really sticks out and everything else is super nice, it's almost like a peer pressure on that building owner, like, why aren't you helping to create this like nice place for us, and you're dragging it down and really proud of all that stuff. So or you take it to the next level of being a code enforcement issue and we start citing people for blight, and you don't have to do, that's not a tax, it's just you are not taking care of your building, and we are concerned about that, and so we're going to start working on that. That's an issue that I've heard from the community and from council that we're working on trying to figure out how to address. I'm more of like the, let's give people the carrot and not the stick, right? And try to lead those businesses to being open and being functional and creating revenue, and everybody's happy, and rising
Yeah.
tides raise all boats. So the more that we can do that, I think the better off we'll be, rather than beating people over the head with a, probably, a vacancy tax or something like that.
Right.
So
Well, I will say, like Commercial Street, the shops right there, they've done an incredible
mhm.
job, except for that little corner across from the firehouse. Don't know what's going on there. I'm not really in the loop on everything. I'm just sharing kind of
Yeah,
like my perspective, what I see. And I think that the only deterrent on that street is if you're handicapped, because
yes, right,
it's a very steep hill, and
right,
you can't please everyone, but there are ways to get in
right,
without having to walk up a steep hill. They have
yeah,
all these little pockets of steps you got to look for.
right, exactly,
And then
yeah,
Central Square, I know that some of the shop owners feel like they're neglected and they're left out because they're like, we're not downtown, but technically they kind of are,
yeah,
because it's a lead up to the hill going into downtown, right?
yeah, yeah, right.
You have anything to share about that?
I think the Central Square and the businesses that we have there, that is like I think it's a little bit of an untapped jewel that we have, because there's not a whole, like, if you go to downtown and you're on, like on the main street, there's not like a place for you to sit and hang out and eat ice cream or have whatever. There's no like gathering place because it's a commercial street, right? But Central Square there is, and so we see people coming in and having this kind of like creating this like cool energy there, especially during the summertime and springtime when the weather's nice. But even in the winter with the fire pit, you got people hanging around, and so that's what we need to kind of help foster that more. Make sure that we have the right kind of businesses there that are going to be successful and be able to tap into that. And that's, we can help a little bit with that. There's not a whole lot we can do, but um, making sure that people know that even if you're in Old Town, there's something at Central Square that you can go to, and then you can keep going up. We need to do a better job of like the wayfinding, making sure that people know how to get where they need to go, and that there is more than just Old Town if you're coming for the history, and we got all the stuff downtown too. Um,
Right, because I think it's easy to see Old Town when you come right off 80.
Yeah.
And a lot of tourists, Bay Area people heading up to Tahoe have no idea downtowns exist.
Yeah.
They
Right.
miss it completely.
Right.
And
Or you go over the bridge and then you see this, you see some buildings there and you're kind of like, what is that? Right. So the city's ARPA money that we got from American Rescue Plan Act, the city designated 500,000 for Old Town, 500,000 for downtown. The downtown 500,000 is actually being used for wayfinding to help get folks off the freeway and into downtown. And it's going to have to be a collaborative thing with Old Town because that's the easiest exit off, right? So that
nice.
project is ongoing, and we're still working through that and see how that ends up working out. The other cool thing on the ARPA side is we're using Old Town's money. They've come up with the idea of creating, it's called Washington Plaza, I think. So kind of a plaza that looks similar to Central Square. It'll be different, obviously, but a little kind of similar idea with the fire pit in the middle and then creating seating and stuff for people to hang out there because it's the same situation as downtown where there's not anywhere for people to sit and do stuff. You go, get like an ice cream or froyo or whatever you're going to do. There's nowhere to sit and look at things and hang out. You're always walking. There's a couple of benches, but not enough. And so we're creating a sense of place by creating an actual place for people to sit and kind of think about where they're going to go next and what
That's
they're
going
going
to
to
be
do.
great.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. What about the Mexican restaurant that closed and the fencing around there?
Tio
Any
Pepe.
plans? Yeah.
So we're working with the property owner regarding the fencing, and I'm not really sure what the issue is there. But it's another one of those things where it's like, why has this been sitting that way for so long,
Yeah.
And me coming in new, I've been here for 8 months and trying to get things kind of settled
8
down.
months, you guys. He's already
Yeah,
done a lot.
yeah. So trying to get things kind of settled down in City Hall, which I think is doing much better, and now being able to focus on bigger issues and how they impact the city and our, you know, tourist districts and making sure that everything is getting moved forward instead of being stagnant. So, yeah,
Yeah, that is kind of a challenge.
it is.
And then Bicentennial Park, I've never heard of it, didn't know anything about it, had no idea that there was like a tunnel there and there
Yeah,
was access to the fairgrounds until I got into Leadership Auburn. Highly recommended if you're a local here. I'm learning a lot, and they're actually going to clean that up. And Arts Council's heavily involved
yeah,
with I guess gardening too. And there is a house right there that you have to kind of walk through their driveway with and obviously there's an easement
yeah,
and it seems empty that no one lives there. But that was something that we thought about as a project, and I posted on Facebook like Chit Chat Auburn and got lots of negative remarks about like
good.
mainly just leave it alone.
Yeah,
But I guess sometimes teenagers or homeless people congregate there because it's dark and
yeah,
easy to do bad things, I guess.
right.
And as a female, I would not want to walk there when it's nighttime.
So I went to Poor Choice, and there's that little trail that kind of goes to Poor Choice on the backside, right? Came back
Hmm.
out, and I heard about the exit through this like carport at the house you're talking about. I was like, and I haven't actually seen it, so I was like, well, I'm gonna walk all the way through and see. And started to walk in, and it was dark-ish. It was kind of like it wasn't quite night, but it was like dark enough for like I was kind of, so I actually turned back, and I didn't go
You
through.
did.
So I don't blame you at all. So
Good.
the Arts Council idea, working with April Maynard, is looking at cleaning it up because it is a mess. It's all overgrown with bushes. It shouldn't look like that. Cleaning that up and creating like lighting underneath the kind of the overpass thing when you're walking through to just make it a little bit more inviting so people don't like start to walk in and then bail out because it's too sketchy. Um, we have obviously issues when there's big events at the fairgrounds and making sure that people can get back and forth and not clogging up the little roads around there. The idea of this pathway and getting through there is you can park at the jury parking lot or in the parking lots all around there, walk all the way through, and then you're not clogging up the streets and dealing with the parking issues. And it also creates a connection point between Old Town and kind of downtown-ish, right? And then you can go from the fairgrounds to downtown and do all the stuff. So the project that I've heard that the leadership is working on is creating kind of a like a walking tour that'll take you on all those spots. Which I think is a pretty good idea.
Yeah, and
But
we're hoping. So I should grab this sign, can I?
yeah,
This Auburn Transit Confluence route is so cool. I love the colors and how pretty it is,
Yeah.
and of course that's my favorite right
Yeah,
there
right. Yeah,
'cause
yeah.
I do that,
Yeah.
and of course there's a fence there now. But such a pretty sign, and we were thinking of doing something similar with quails since that's
Yeah.
a California bird. But we want to make sure that we merge with the branding that's coming
Right.
and having it the same in Old Town and downtown, obviously. And we were having a story in little words. We had different quails, but they had names, and we're like, no, no, too much.
Yeah.
So now it'll be a quail, the same quail for each one, about 11, and all the famous landmarks that we have. And it will be a QR code where you get the story and anecdotes of the locals of what, like, say, City Hall means to them or an experience that they've had,
Oh, that's great.
and or the clock tower,
Yeah.
things like that. And I think that'll make it much easier,
Yeah.
and it'll hopefully inspire people to go both places, so one area won't be neglected.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And that's a goal. And what's funny, because we were joking last night, we're like, yeah, there's these dead zones, and I'm like, you mean the funeral home? Because you have to walk by that.
Right.
And
Right.
that's a pretty place, but it is a little scary crossing the road there because so many people are like, I actually will come this way. I live in North Auburn to go to Folsom and Granite Bay.
Yeah.
I cut right through here
Auburn Folsom, yeah.
instead of going when I don't want to go over the canyon.
Right.
So that's my only option.
Right.
Unless, or go down Highway 80 to Horseshoe Bar and then across.
Right.
That, I guess it's not my only option. It's just easy.
Yeah,
it's like
easy.
the shortest way.
Right.
So you do have to deal with that with crossing over. And I think that, and back in the 1800s, they weren't thinking
that's exactly what I was talking
because
about,
of
right?
horses and
These
carriages.
streets are like weren't necessarily built for that, and then trying to figure out, trying to figure out how to be able to get multimodal transportation on like Auburn Folsom, right? Bikes, horse trail might be a little bit kind of iffy, but just like a bike lane is so difficult because people drive so fast on that road. And then you need to look at like, well, do you have enough right of way? And most of the time we don't, because the roads were built for wagons and then they were eventually expanded. And we just don't have enough room to fit that stuff in. So it's a challenge that we've been working on. We're doing the general plan update right now. And part of that is the circulation element. We're going to look at, we have to look at this, but we want to include ways to start kind of strategizing on building more bike paths and getting people around town. So you don't have to get in your car. I just bought an e-bike the other day at A-Town Bikes. And so trying to figure out how to be able to get from place to place without having to drive, but you have to be able to do it safely too. And we just don't have a lot of bike lanes here because we haven't invested in that infrastructure. And now in some places it might be too late. So I think that there's ways to get there. It's just going to take a lot of work, and money solves all problems, I guess.
Right.
So.
Well, and then e-bikes was very controversial in my world and the horse world on the trails, just because they're quiet, and a lot of people that don't know trail etiquette are popping on them and going way farther than they ever expected to go. And as a horse rider, that's where I tend to go, is just to avoid the crowds. Like Hidden Falls, for example, I'll go on the outskirts and right on the edge. Super excited that they're expanding that.
Yeah.
Sorry to the homeowners that aren't happy, but it is what it is.
Right.
And I think for the e-bikes with the hills, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, right.
To be able to come down, ride your bike up and down the hills.
Yeah.
And you won't have to worry about people falling over and having heart attacks
Right.
because they got their battery on there. And it appeals to all ages. So a senior citizen that's 75 years old, not super fit, they could ride their bike around.
Right. Yeah. There's a woman in town here who she and I have conversations about this all the time. She has an e-bike that's like a cargo bike, and she put basically bike seats into it for her kids, and so she rides all over the place with this bike and taking her kids over. It's like amazing, but it's like the safety side of it for me is a little bit concerning, right? So I think we need to plan it out, make sure it's being done properly. We don't want to just plop down a bunch of like bike paths without having them connect the way that they should and buy all that liability.
So this sounds like a huge advantage for us as you're having you as our city manager with your very exciting transportation background.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
So now you, your typical city manager probably wouldn't have gone that way because it's not as exciting.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So it's my background is kind of strange. There's usually this path of getting to be a city manager where you go to college, you get hired as an intern, then you get a job as an analyst, and then you're a senior analyst, and then you're a principal analyst, and then you're a deputy and an assistant, and then you make it to be city manager like 5 years before you retire. So I got hired in Sutter Creek as the assistant city manager when I was like, I don't think it was even, I was maybe 30 at the most. And then was appointed city manager at 32. So super young. And I was always the youngest like manager in the room out of any group by far. But then with the economy collapsing, that was like 2007, right? And so so we ended up buying out department heads and people left. And so I ended up being the city manager, public works director, the community development director, planner, the risk manager. I ran a county, like sub county wide sewer JPA. And I would, I had a city truck that I got. And so I drove around, I put the barricades up for the events because Sutter Creek had events like all the time. So I put the barricades out myself and I put out the cones and all that stuff. I would go clean storm drains. I went out and did sewer plugs with the sewer guys. And
Wow.
so like I have this like background of like doing all the departments except for chief of police. I didn't do police, but I have the background of doing all these different departments like as the director because I had to. And I think it makes it easier for me to see how things work together. Where somebody who went through that normal process, especially if you're working in a bigger city, they don't really have that. It's more of a narrow focus, and mine's kind of much more broader, I think. So.
And you wouldn't even think that because you're like, oh, he's just a small town guy.
Yeah,
But
right.
it's a complete opposite.
Yeah, yeah. Because if you're working in a bigger city, you'll be like the principal analyst of a program, right? Where if you're working in a smaller city like Auburn, and we have analysts here, like an analyst position, that person is dealing with all the stuff. Anything that I need, I give to that person, right? Not just one little program. So it's if you're going into government, go to work for a small city. That's all I'm saying. It's much better.
Yeah.
Big cities might pay more, but you don't get as much professional growth and experience. So.
Right, and then you can go anywhere you want, right? After that, because you have so much experience.
Exactly.
And then there's a list of government jobs. Like, okay, I'll interview for this one, that one, this one, this one, because you can fill all those spots.
Exactly.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I look at it too, like Rotary. We have a big club and a small club. If you go in the small club, you'll probably be president like 2 or 3 times,
right,
or more. Whereas the big club, you're like, oh, I don't have to do that if I don't want to.
Right.
They're fine because they got plenty of other people to choose from.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's true. I'm waiting to see like how I fit in with all the. I got to get on a committee and I got to get that stuff figured out.
So I'm wearing green because St. Patrick's Day is coming up and there's a parade. And for Auburn, you don't have to put up cones and whatnot.
I don't have to do that.
You're off the hook.
No, not yet. I will do it if I have to.
Can you come and drink a green beer from the Auburn Ale House, or
I love green
beer. What are you going to do?
I'm not sure what we're doing. I think we are coming to the parade for sure. I know that we have a family thing that same day, and I'm not sure about the timing. My calendar, I basically live like what's in my calendar, right? And so if it's not in there, then I don't know, literally don't have any idea what I'm supposed to be going and doing. And so my wife didn't put anything into the calendar yet. So I know that we're doing something, I just don't know what it is.
Right. I have to color code mine, and blue means the husband gets to see it and he knows where I am and that he might be involved.
Yeah, same thing.
And he has to call me and ask me, do I have to go?
Yes. I go where I'm told.
I love that. So I've heard you speak a couple of times, and I know you told me that you had a special needs dog. And as an animal lover who has 2 Great Pyrenees that could probably eat your dog, maybe. Tell me about it.
So Rolly is our French bulldog. He was named after a cartoon dog that my daughter loved when she was little. So he's going to be 4 years old. He's a French bulldog, and he is like allergic to everything. So he's allergic to grass, which is not very conducive for a dog.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So when he was a puppy, it's like he's laying in the grass, like any good dog should do, lay in the grass. And then that night he's like just covered with welts, and so I'm freaking out trying to figure out, take him to the vet, and he's like, he's allergic to grass. I'm like, how's the dog get allergic to grass? So he takes medication now. So he's medicated for allergy pills for dogs. He does that stuff, and then he farts and snores like a truck driver. And
the breathing, right?
Yeah, he had to have the surgery to help his nose. It's not good.
Does he sleep in your bedroom?
No.
Okay.
He sleeps in my daughter's bedroom.
Okay.
He is the only redeeming thing about this dog is he is very good with my kid, and she loves him. So
you suffer for her.
I do. He's a good dog.
Oh, Rolly.
expensive.
Uh-huh.
Vet visits every other
I
month.
like to hear that story. It makes me feel a little bit better since I have so many animals and they have to get
Yeah.
new shoes, get their feet trimmed, and it's like I wear the same shoes every 6
Yeah.
weeks.
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't get new
Yeah.
shoes and
Yeah.
shots and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. He's
Yeah.
he's a good dog.
So one thing I wanted to bring up is, as a realtor too, is the Wells Fargo building, and I think it's such a cool, sad story. It's just so unique.
Yeah.
Can you share that?
Yeah, so that building has been vacant for I don't really know how long, but quite a while. It's there's so back in the old days, dry cleaners used all kinds of chemicals that we finally realized are not good for the environment. And so there was a dry cleaner somewhere up the road, and the dry cleaning chemicals somehow leached into the soil and ended up contaminating underneath the Wells Fargo building. So that building has a basement, and the basement has a well, an actual well in it that has water flowing through it, almost like a little season, like a creek kind of a thing. That gets tested every once in a while. It's not so much the chemicals in the water; it's the vapor that's in the basement. So I went in and I was, kind of looking around, and I came out with a headache. It's not a good situation. So we're trying to figure out how to deal with it. It's owned by a private person, and so working through that with him and remediation and trying to figure out like why would somebody buy this problem. Basically, there was a time where the city considered buying it, and thankfully, this is before I was here, but thankfully the city attorney talked, made sure that the council understood the risks of that, and they didn't go forward because then we
It
basically
was
just
disclosed
buy a
too.
bunch of contaminated property, and that's not good for us. So
No, and this is the Wells Fargo that is on the corner at in Central Square, across from the Chamber office and Visit Placer
yeah,
office, and it's a great parking lot for a few cars.
yeah, but
But that's
it's
it.
such a big building right in the
It
middle of our
is
downtown that it's not an eyesore because it's at least kept up, but
right.
that big of a building and sitting vacant for as long is not
And
great. So
it's kind of too small of a space to turn it into a parking garage because you have to be able to go around in a
yeah,
circle to get up and get out, and
yeah,
it's just too small, right?
right. So the way that you fix it is because there's no way to like excavate the soil and get rid of it all.
Uh-huh.
So the way you fix it is you cap it by basically covering it over with cement, but you can't cover over a two-story building with cement, right? And so we're working through it, trying to figure this out with the property owner how we can address it because it is something that we're really focused on and trying to figure out how to clean it up. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that.
yeah,
One more thing too is, so we've got, you're the city manager of Auburn, and the city involves this whole area where we are right now, downtown, Old Town, Central Square, and then partway up 49 to where the Toyota dealership is,
before the
and the
Toyota
Chinese
dealership. Yep.
cemetery, and then it stops. But then we have an island, which is the airport, and when I went to a meeting about that with Leadership Auburn, and loved that there's no fencing and it plans to stay that way, and that tourists and locals can come in and walk around.
Don't walk on the
Um,
runway. Stay off the runway.
and they are hopefully aware that that would be a bad
Yeah.
idea, and they have someone to come running out if they
Yeah.
don't have the wherewithal to not do that, if they drink too much at the restaurant,
Yeah.
wings or something, or wander off from Moonraker and get lost knee deep.
Yeah.
But I think that's really cool that that island's there, and we also got a tour of Morgan Tech, the ceramics
Yeah.
company that's huge
Yeah.
worldwide. Anything
It's
happening
it's
there?
that whole the airport and the business park is just such an amazing like kind of it's a real like what's the word, asset for the city, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
not only you got people flying in, and the airport is doing an awesome business with that. And we've got hangars that we're leasing now. We built a bunch of new hangars. Most of them are, even though they're not quite actually up and ready to be leased, most of them are already leased. So there's a lot of demand for those hangars right now.
Mm-hmm.
The business park itself, there's not very many. In fact, if there's any, there's not very many spaces available for those buildings, and so it's a unique kind of asset for us that we are continuing to try to promote and to try to get moving forward. The thing that's really interesting about it is that so all of the city owns all of that property, including the business park, right? And so the buildings were built by the business owners or whoever built them. The city didn't; they might have built a couple, but not very many. But they're on a 50-year lease, and once the lease expires, it can't be renewed under the FAA laws.
Ah.
So, so then there's like maybe 10 years or so a lot of those buildings, the leases come up. We figured out a way that we think that we might be able to extend it because there's a lot of businesses there that we don't want to have leave, obviously. So we're working. I think the city attorney has figured out a way that we can extend them for a certain period of time. I don't know what that is yet, but it's just such a like cool thing that you wouldn't really think is there, right? We don't do a very good job of promoting it, and we're trying to do more of that to make sure folks know what's up there. One of the things that I was thinking about the other day is like you fly in, and if you're not from here, you fly in, and then you can go to Wings, but like there's no way to get anywhere, right? You can call it Uber, I guess, and wait for 20 minutes or something. But for somebody to get from the airport to like downtown and spend money here, or Old Town, or whatever, there's not a real easy way to do that. And
No.
I'm not really sure what the solution is to that yet. We've been trying to figure that out.
Well, I know the city has 2 Teslas that are for
The Auburn On
like
Demand, yeah.
yes, but
Yeah.
that's just 2,
Right.
and they go to Target, which I assume includes that's their. I'd have to get dropped off at Target. My husband would have to come get me.
Yeah,
So
right.
I wouldn't
Yeah,
be.
that's right.
I
'Cause
couldn't
it's
walk
outside of the city
home.
limits. Yeah.
Right, but it
Right.
does go to the airport, and then maybe. I mean, I actually the city manager has a plane there that not the city manager, this manager of the airport.
Airport manager.
He used to be a broker, and he is a Mooney, and we flew to was I with no, I met someone else that had another plane. Sorry, Half Moon Bay.
Yeah.
And they had a restaurant and a bar, and it was really nice because you just could see the ocean
Right.
off in the distance, and had a great dinner.
Yeah.
And drinks, whereas Wings is only breakfast and lunch, so you have that limited window there. And then Moonraker has to pretty much stop serving beer around 8 o'clock, I think, and knee deep. And they have food trucks, and the food trucks want to be gone by 7 because they're done. So there's really nowhere to go. There's no restaurants that are open a little bit later.
Yeah,
like
right.
Even Josephine's, like they'll take a reservation at 9:30, which is kind of shocking for Auburn,
Yeah.
and it's not going to be full.
Right.
People for sure, but at least you have that option because people complain about everything shuts down by 8 o'clock.
Yeah, I've been thinking like in like Sacramento, they have zip cars. I think they still have zip cars, right? So you join this not to promote any kind of a specific thing, but basically pay a monthly fee. You can drive the car, so you don't have to own a car. You go to the parking spot where it's at, you reserve it, pick it up, you drive it, and then you take it back.
So it's like a scooter,
basically, but it's for a car. And so because like getting from the airport to here on a scooter or a bike is going to be kind of sketchy. But the zip car thing, if we could figure out a way to do that, I think that's a good way to get, like, you only need one, right? Get people from there to here. They go back, they drop the zip car off, and then they take their plane out. So that's one of the things I want to start looking at, is just a way to get people from airport to the city, downtown, Old Town, spend money here, and then go back. So we're going to start working on it. We're doing an airport master plan, and that'll be part of the discussion on that. There's been a lot of consternation about the master plan, and that we're going to be expanding the runway, and we're going to have commercial jets coming in and all this stuff. It's not true. It's not a happening thing. We went through this extension of the runway to extend it on the ends for safety only. We're not bringing in commercial jets. We're not doing anything like that. It's only to provide for safety. So
I did get a tour of the biggest jet there, which seats 6 people and has like a camp toilet, and it's a $6 million jet. And has a camp toilet. I'm like, really? I don't want that if I had the money.
I sat in that thing too. And
that's right. You saw that.
I felt like a giant getting in it, because that thing is not made for tall people at all.
No, and I'm really sorry that a lot of people believe that I bought that jet because I was joking, and I got some private messages like, "Did you really buy that?" And I'm like, "It's Facebook, no."
Yeah.
I was just having fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's the biggest jet so far that could go into the airport, and like you said, both I think it's 800 yards maybe that it can be extended, and then 75 width, and you cannot go past it 75. And a larger jet would have a bigger wingspan, so it's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
So we're all good.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Maybe I'll buy a helicopter. That would be easier for you.
We have a couple.
It has a dome for your head, so you'd be fine.
Yeah. Sounds good to me.
Is there
another like the backpack thing with the big fan and the parachute just to keep me up or something? Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. That's funny. Is there another island, or is that just it?
The other one that we have is the sewer plant.
I'm not excited about that.
We don't want people hanging out at the sewer plant.
That's right. But sewer plant is where all the water is, and apparently Auburn has way more water than it actually needs, just because when they built it, they weren't sure what they needed.
Yeah.
And this is talking to Minjel, who runs that, and that's one reason why we moved here from the Bay Area. We kind of like got kicked out, unaffordable, especially as a horse owner, and had to go north or south. And we looked at San Luis Obispo County, and there's no water down there.
Right.
There's some amazing wineries, but we weren't going to open a winery just to get water. And I feel like I kind of disappointed that they save the water for a winery
Right.
when there's such a need for it.
Right.
And then up here, there's the Sierras. I didn't even know about the sewer plant and how
Yeah.
much water. And plus, it doesn't involve us since we live in the county and have a well with 25 GPM, by the way.
Wow. Yeah, that's
And
pretty good.
that's really good.
Yeah.
But we needed to be near the Sierras, and that's what brought us here. So I think that's a big selling point for anyone that's trying to figure out that can work remotely, live anywhere. This an hour from Tahoe, you just can't beat it.
Yeah, the outdoor recreational opportunities that we have here are just like astounding. And frankly, that's one of the things I was most surprised about. I knew about the endurance running and endurance capital of the world, and I knew about that stuff, and I didn't know how big like Western States is. So I went to the like lottery draw and got to be a celebrity lottery puller, and so that was really neat. And just like how many people like swarm that thing. And so we have canyons coming up. That big race is coming up in April, but we have so much like opportunity for that. Not only the races and stuff, but like you can like I just bought an e-bike, right? And so I can get on this e-bike that I haven't gotten delivery yet, but I will soon. I can get on the e-bike and like literally within 10 minutes be down into the canyon, right along all those trails, staying away from horses and making sure we're not freaking.
You just gotta talk to them. Say, "Hey, horse, I'm here."
Yeah, but so riding on appropriate trails.
Right.
But there's so much stuff that you can do here, whether it's an hour from Tahoe. San Francisco is still not that far, right? 3 hours, maybe 2 hours at the most. So, and Sacramento's obviously closed. Roseville is closed, so if you want a big store and that kind of stuff. So it is a really good kind of like in the middle spot with the history that we have, recreation stuff that we have. The community's been fabulous to me and has been really, really welcoming. So it is kind of like the best of all worlds, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're don't get a ton of snow. Like every once in a while, they get none this year so far. Knock on wood.
It melts the next day if we do.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
at 1,500 feet anyway.
Yeah, right.
I'm right up the hill, but you're right. No snow down here.
Yeah.
Just a little bit further down.
Yeah.
And don't forget Placer Grown and Placer Wine Trail with all the breweries and the wineries. And then we have a couple distilleries too. One of the distilleries is at the airport, and he's pretty much there every Saturday now. He's got some good gin and bourbons, and then you are in trouble if you don't drink. So that's bad. But you could just run and ride your horse and ride your bike and stay away from the wineries if you want to.
Yeah. The ag community, all that. So it really is kind of a perfect spot for people who are looking to get away from the area kind of stuff. So,
right. Yeah. Anything else that you think we missed? Did we cover everything?
I think so. Just invite, if you were looking to move somewhere, move to Auburn, Lori's perfect for you to get that stuff figured out. So.
Thanks, you just did my job.
Yeah, but I just think this is an amazing community. I'm so happy to be here. It's been super welcoming to me and my family, it's great.
Thanks. Yeah. So my YouTube channel is Living in Auburn. If you came across this, so you know that. And please subscribe. I'm really focused on interviewing locals and people that work for the community, so you can learn more about Auburn, and then I can help you find a house, and I can also help you sell your house if you want to downsize because you're not leaving, or you have kids, or you got a little French bulldog that needs his own bedroom, so you need a bigger house. I'm happy to help you with that too. And again, my name's Lori with EXP. Thanks a lot. Okie dokie. Oh yeah, we should shake hands.
Thanks.
I'll see you Tuesday.
Yep, I'll be there.